Hornets, nobody cares. Alrighty, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Timeout with Doc and Caveman. As always, you are here with Dr. Fantasy and the Fantasy Caveman. We are continuing on with our team previews for the 2021-22 NBA season. Today we're going to be talking about the Charlotte Hornets, who everybody hates. Nobody wants to talk about them. And when we post this in Hornets groups, they're going to be very mad that I just said that, because you know that they're listening in the first 30 seconds. But that you should...
Disclaimer, I will calm everybody down. I will be the favorite when we post this to these groups.
No, actually, you're not going to be, because I'm going to surprise you in this episode.
Okay.
I just the reason that the Hornets bother me is that everybody talks about LaMelo and acts like nobody else is on the team, and I hate that, because they actually have a good team, and it's like nobody cares because of stupid LaMelo, so it just really bothers me. But subscribe on YouTube if you're not too angry at me for saying nobody cares about the Hornets, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Yeah, it's like literally our average watch time for this is going to be 30 seconds, and then everybody drops out. That's just how it's going to be for this. But that's okay. So let's talk about last season for the Hornets. Like I said, stay tuned. I have some predictions for the Hornets. So last season they were 33-39. 10th in the Eastern Conference, so they did get to play in the play-in tournament there under head coach James Borrego. A few random stats: 18th in defensive rating, 22nd offensively. They were 13th in three-point percentage, so pretty effective there. One of the things that I was kind of impressed with was they were actually 13th in the league in rebounding, which when you look at their roster last year, they didn't really have an effective guy down in the post, but everybody rebounded really well from their position. When you look at LaMelo and Rozier, those guys are really strong rebounders in the backcourt, so they were good as a team rebounding, which I thought was kind of interesting when you look at how the roster was constructed. And it was kind of funny when you looked at it. They were 16th or 17th in legitimately like every category besides that, just in terms of different 2-point percentage, field goal attempt, everything. They were like right in the middle of the league in almost everything. So kind of interesting there. But let's talk about some of their season leaders. Terry Rozier at 20.4 points led the way. Gordon Hayward second with 19.6 points. LaMelo Ball 15.7 points. Rebounds, as I mentioned, nobody over 7 rebounds. Zeller led the way at 6.8, PJ Washington 6.5, and then Miles Bridges at 6. They had 6 players who were over 5 rebounds, which you don't see very often. So as I said, they were just very good rebounding as a unit. Assists, LaMelo led the way with 6.1. Devontae Graham, who is no longer with the team, at 5.4. LaMelo leading steals 1.6, Rozier with 1.3, and then finally blocks PJ Washington at 1.2, and Bismack Biyombo still kicking around at 1.1 blocks a game. So who stood out to you last season, Caveman?
Let's see. I want to talk about Cody Zeller for a second. No, I don't want to talk about Cody Zeller.
God. Just kill me now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you gotta, and you don't like to talk about him too much, but you gotta talk about LaMelo Ball in his rookie season. Averaging 16, 6, and 6 as a rookie, I think LaMelo came in with so much hype, and honestly, he lived up to it his rookie season. He didn't disappoint. I mean, you saw flashes of his amazing vision and passing ability, setting up his teammates. Remember, he didn't start out the gate. He came off the bench for a while. It wasn't until so he played in 51 games, started 31. So he was on the bench for quite a bit of time. So I think had he came out the gate starting, I think you would have seen a little bit better than the averages that he put up. But like you said, and some of his concern was from the 3-point line. Actually shot 35% from 3 last season, which is a lot better. I know you were not high on his 3-point shooting coming into last season. So I think he showed that he has the ability to be a much better 3-point shooter than people were to give him credit for. And remember when he went down with that wrist injury, they were 5th in the Eastern Conference when he went down with that injury, and they slid and ended up finishing in 10th. So I mean, not much. I think that is a very odd coincidence that they were a 5th seed when
Do
he
you really think that's a coincidence?
It's a very odd coincidence that when he went out, they kind of just fell off the rails a little bit. I really think that when you're talking about him, I expect him to be a superstar next season. I expect him to make a year 2 superstar jump. He's going to be the guy out the gate. He's not going to really be eased into it like he was last season. I think you're going to see a guy, not saying he's not going to average a triple-double. I don't think he makes that. I don't think he has a Russell Westbrook-like season.
Okay, calm down.
But I do think you're seeing that he's going to – I honestly see him averaging 28 and 8. I think he has that type of season. I really think he makes that superstar.
Yeah, I mean, I will say to his credit, he did have a lot of pressure coming into the league, and he lived up to expectations. You know, there's a lot of guys that falter and let the pressure get to them, but that was not the case with him. So I can definitely give props there, because, I mean, if I said he wasn't going to be a
I've never been more proud of you than this moment where you're giving LaMelo Ball props.
I mean, I'm not going to be crazy. I mean, he is one of the bright young faces of this league. That's a reality.
He's
I mean, I don't.
19.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he just turned 20, so let's calm down, caveman. Isn't he 20 years old now? But
okay. Let's talk about anybody other. I'm sure you want to talk about somebody other than LaMelo.
I do. He won Rookie of the Year. I suppose we should at least say that. We didn't mention it, but he is the Rookie of the Year. Yeah. So there's two guys. Terry Rozier had a really nice season. When LaMelo wasn't playing, he really picked up a lot of the scoring punch, and he was really defensive. He's a great defender, too, which they really need on this team. So he deserves a lot of credit for leading this unit defensively. And he averaged 20 points last year. I mean, that's impressive. So he improved very much so offensively as well. The other guy who I love his Michigan State roots. I never thought much of him, if we're being honest about it, but I watched him a few times, and he was pretty impressive, if we're being honest about it. So that's Miles Bridges, who was really good as a three-point shooter, 40% last season, which was a huge jump for him, almost 87% from the free throw line. Him and LaMelo really had a nice chemistry when they play on the court together.
Him and LaMelo was a special in the pick and roll. That was something special to watch with him and Bridges.
So I think of all the guys on the team, if we're being honest about it, I think his stock jumped more than anybody else's, in my opinion. So I think he was a guy coming in the season. People had expectations, but I think he really lived up and went above and beyond and showed he has a lot of upside. Still only 23 years old as well. So I'm kind of interested to see where his career takes him. I think he has a lot of potential, and he had a really nice year.
Yeah, I talked about him. I do want to throw PJ Washington's name in there too a little bit. I think he had a solid season overall. And you look at outside of he kind of played everywhere for him. He kind of did a bit of everything. He played a lot of small ball 5 too. When you didn't have when they didn't have Cody Zeller on the court, you saw a decent amount of PJ Washington at the 5 as well. I think he's just especially with this team, you mentioned them needing defenders. I think he is a very versatile defender that can really guard all these multiple positions. So, and we'll talk about it when we get in their position. But when they get into who they brought in, but they brought in another guy, versatile defender that could play both. Well, but PJ Washington, I think you have to give him some props. He has to get some props too for how.
Definitely, and all those guys are, except Rozier's 27, I believe, but very young too. He's also 23, PJ Washington. So an interesting young core they have right now. So let's talk about some of the additions and move forward to look at this upcoming season. Through the draft, they acquired James Bouknight, Kai Jones, Ardonis Kolboka, Scotty Lewis, and JT Thor. So they had a really nice draft, arguably one of the top few drafts of anybody. I really liked it. Free agent additions: Wes Owindu, Kelly Oubre, Mason Plumlee. Then they lost Bismack Biyombo, Devontae Graham, Caleb Martin, Malik Monk, Brad Wanamaker, and Cody Zeller. So a few names there, but what do you think of this offseason as a whole, K-Man?
You disrespected Kelly Oubre by not calling him by his nickname, Tsunami Poppy. That's his nickname.
I can assure you that I'm not going to do that.
Get it right. Well, I mean, that's obviously to me that getting Oubre and then getting Bouknight. I think Bouknight is one of those where he kind of slipped a little bit in the draft. And it was kind of one of those situations where I'd look at this team, and while I would have preferred the Hornets to get kind of like a big man defender, Bouknight was a value you couldn't pass up.
Mm-hmm.
So I like him, especially now, Graham's gone. You kind of look at that backcourt depth, and Bouknight's going to be the top guard coming off the bench from day one. We'll get into it next season. To me personally, I would start him, but that's not the way they're going to go. But other than that, Oubre, and I mentioned him when I was talking about PJ Watt, he's going to be another. He had a down season with Golden State last season. Didn't shoot the ball well, but he's going to be very solid for this team and what they need him to do, which is come in and be that versatile defender. He's going to come in, and I really think he's going to help out that aspect. Give the LaMelo Ball another athletic wing guy to throw lobs to and kind of play in the pick and roll. So I love that. I love that aspect of it too. And you clowned on this guy before we started recording, but I really like the Ish Smith signing, if we're being honest. I think he is one of those at this stage in his career. I think he is perfectly set up the play when LaMelo Ball, because the thing is LaMelo Ball is not going to play 48 minutes a game.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Bold.
I think Ish Smith is capable enough at this point to handle his, like, what is he going to probably play about maybe 13 to 15 minutes a game. I think you're gonna see LaMelo Ball play around 35 minutes a game. I'd expect. So for the remaining 13 minutes, I really think Ish Smith is very capable of handling and holding his own for a second unit for that amount of time a game. So I like that signing because they needed another point guard. As much as as great as LaMelo Ball is and is going to become, you need another guy that can handle the point guard position. So I think good offseason, good draft, some solid free agent signings, and I really think that bodes well for how they're going to do next season.
Yeah, and I don't want to focus as much on who they lost and added through free agency and trades because Oubre was a great move defensively. Maybe he'll get his 3-point stroke back. We'll see. Devontae Graham obviously is the biggest loss, but I don't think they love the way that he gelled with LaMelo, so yeah, I don't think they saw that.
That was him and LaMelo on the court last season. That did not work.
No, it was not good. So I think that was an unsurprising move on their end by parting ways with him. And we talked about it in the during the season. They were going to have to decide between Rozier and Devontae Graham, and they did make that decision. So to me, though, this is a team, they're building a really young core. This is going to be one of the youngest teams in the NBA. They added LaMelo last season. They added Vernon Carey in the first or the early second round last year, who didn't really play a lot. And now you add Kai Jones and Bouknight, JT Thor, Scotty Lewis, Kolboka, who I've read a little bit about, and people really like him. This is a really young core. That's why this is a team. I don't know if they're ready to compete and be a championship contender, but they have a superstar. They have a lot of young, intriguing wing players. They have scoring. They have some defense. I think one of these guys is really going to have to step up and be that second star player if they ever want to compete for a championship. But the way that they're building themselves, I mean, they're heading in that direction in the next few seasons. So I think they'll be fun to watch at least. So let's go. We've mentioned their depth chart a little bit, but let's talk about it. In the backcourt, they have LaMelo and Rozier listed as the starters. Behind them, Ish Smith and Bouknight. At the three, Gordon Hayward, who we haven't even really mentioned this
I know
episode.
that's
Gordon Hayward's still there. Kelly Oubre is going to be coming off the bench for them. Jalen McDaniels, Cody Martin. At the four, they have PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, who's going to play three and the four, kind of a mix of both. Then at the five, you have a lot of young guys. Mason Plumlee, you have Vernon Carey, Kai Jones, JT Thor. I'm interested to see how this front court ends up gelling together and how the minutes get distributed, because you have the veteran there in Plumlee, but you have a lot of young, interesting guys with a lot of upside behind them. So I'm kind of interested to see how that shakes itself out.
Yeah, and I honestly, I love this depth all the way around. They have a very, and we talk, most of the teams that we've covered so far, like, okay, they're decent depth, but there's some holes. You can poke holes somewhere in their depth chart. I don't think this team really has any holes in their depth chart, if we're being honest. You look at, you're going to, sure, you can say behind LaMelo, but when you got a guy like Bouknight coming off the bench, who's going to play some two for him, Kelly Oubre is versatile enough to play in that backcourt as well. I mean, Miles Bridges can play a little bit. I don't see, and I'm personally like Ish Smith stuff, but I don't really see that as really a hole in the depth chart at all. But so I think overall, I think this is good. I really like the depth they have, and we're gonna talk about it with where they're finished. But this might be my most favorite depth chart of any team we've done so far, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and they have a good mix of youth. They have some three-point shooting. They have some defenders. They have a little bit of everything. So I think, yeah, I agree that this is going to be a fun depth chart to see how the minutes get distributed and see who ends up coming forward. I really liked Vernon Carey coming out, so I hope that he gets some more minutes. I thought Kai Jones was a really fun prospect coming in this year. A lot of energy, very athletic. Same with JT Thor. So I'm kind of interested to just see how all of this shakes out for them this upcoming season. Speaking of that, let's talk about where we think they're going to finish this season. Caveman, you sound like you have something bold to say, so just go ahead.
They're going to be the fourth seed in the Eastern Conference.
The fourth seed?
It's going to be in no specific order. I mean, it's going to be Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Philly. But I honestly see Charlotte as number 4. I think that's bold. I personally think that's pretty bold for to say that they're gonna. But I honestly like this team. They have everything. They have a mix of defenders. PJ Washington's a good defender. Kelly Oubre is a good defender. Terry Rozier is a good defender. I think Hayward can also play a little bit of defense. They have shooting as well. Rozier can shoot. Hayward can shoot. PJ Washington can shoot a little bit. Bouknight off the bench is going to be able to shoot. LaMelo is only going to improve. I mean, he was a 35% three-point shooter last season. I expect that percentage to go up. Guys like Thor and McDaniels and Bridges, they all have the ability. I think they have all the pieces necessary to be a good all-around team. So I expect everybody to make the necessary jumps. So I'm going to say fourth in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is underrated, LaMelo's not a good defender, but they've surrounded him with a lot of really nice defenders, which is kind of how you have to construct a team like this. I think they're too young to be that high in the Eastern Conference personally, but I do think that their defense, I mean, they're going to improve compared to last season. This is a team that should be better. They're going to be another year experience. They added some, Kelly Oubre is going to make a big difference defensively for them. So this is a team, I'd have them at the 7 seed right now if I was breaking it down. So higher than you probably expected, Caveman.
I honestly expected you to have them in the 10-11 range.
I do not, though, so I don't hate them that much. But no, this is a team that, if I wanted to give a comparison, similar to the Hawks last year, they got hot and made a little run in the playoffs. The Hawks, one of the youngest teams in the league, surrounding their young superstar caliber players.
The Hawks, they finished in the 4 or 5 range. So would it be unrealistic to expect the Hornets to do what the Hawks did last year?
I don't think unrealistic. Would I predict it? No, only because they're a little young.
That's why.
No, they're a little younger than the Hawks, and I think the Hawks had more veteran depth. This team has a lot of young depth. They had a lot of veterans coming off the bench, the Hawks, and I think that's a difference here. A very subtle difference, but to me, still a difference. So, yeah, I think it's still an intriguing team, though. Don't get me wrong, but I think that they're just too young to make a real. They're a team. Maybe the year after we're talking about them more as a Hawk level team, but I still think they're a good year away, for me personally. So, still probably I'd say 7 or 8. Either way, that's more optimistic than probably you were expecting. Yeah. But I feel like this episode was way too short. It was too positive. I need to say, stop talking about LaMelo.
Say something bad about LaMelo just so you can feel better about yourself.
Okay, I would like that. Stop talking about LaMelo. There's more people on the team than LaMelo. That's about all that I have to say. So,
all right.
Let's see. Anything else? Anything else you want to say, Caveman?
I mean, like I said, I'm super high on them. Them and the Bulls, to me, out of the teams that we've done so far, and maybe in the entire league, they had 2 of the top 5 off seasons out of everybody in the league. So I think Michael Jordan, maybe he's finally gaining some sense as an owner. He really hasn't really done much, as an owner of the Hornets so far. So I really think that maybe he's finally realizing how to build a team. I think he's finally built a team the right way. So sky's the limit for him. I don't think they're not going to be a championship contender in the Eastern Conference. But
let's calm down.
I said they're not. I did say they're not going to be a champion. But I think they can be as soon as next season they can win a title. So we'll have to see, but sky's the limit for them. Sky really is the limit. It's just the
sky is the limit. You heard it from Caveman. The sky is the limit. So I guess that's pretty much it then for the Hornets here. So we'll be coming with more playoff teams in the next weeks here. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll get notified anytime that we release any content. So we appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.